TNA Sacrifice 2007. If you're hankering for some TNA nostalgia, or if you just want to jump in and see what was all the hubbub about total nonstop action, this is the show for you. It gives you all the cornerstones of this company. You have great matches. You got Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. You got X Division showcases. You got a classic Texas death match, one of the best TNA matches of all time. But you also got the wonky finishes in the main event. You got the weird cameos from wrestlers from the past, a little dash of misogyny. But when you lay your head down on that pillow tonight, when you go to sleep, after listening to this episode, after watching this episode, among all of this chicanery, the question that is going to be on the tip of your brain is, what's next for the Basham brothers? Well, we get into all of that and more on the Apron Bump Podcast.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
What's up, everybody? Howdy, howdy, howdy. How is everybody doing on this fine bump day? Glad to have you. Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I, of course, am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle. TNA Sacrifice 2007 is the show we will be gallivanting about today. Lots to get into. Covered a lot in the cold open. Like I said, there's a lot of good stuff on the show, honestly. And there's a kind of a theme throughout this podcast and what we talk about. TNA, especially in this era, is kind of a mixed bag. You can get some shows that are just slogs to get through. Especially recently in some of my recent episodes, Lockdown, Destination X, there's been a lot of, let's just say, Vince Russo influence. There's been a lot of terrible gimmick matches, weird stories, and not really enough good action to compensate. But Sacrifice 07 might be one of the best TNA shows ever. Honestly, I mean, that's a pretty bold thing to say out of the gate. I'll say this, it's probably the best TNA show I've watched since I've been covering it. So started from their first pay-per-view in 04, or their first 3-hour pay-per-view in 04, all the way up to now. Which, by the way, if you want, I didn't really sell the journey well there. But if you would like to come along the journey with me, maybe you're checking out the Apron Bump for the first time, and you want to know how we got here, whether it's this timeline or the other various timelines I cover, whether it's TNA, whether it's the wrestling wars of the 90s between WWF, WCW, and ECW. Maybe it's the Ruthless Aggression era, Attitude era, Progress Wrestling, the golden era of Ring of Honor, starting from the beginning there. I cover a lot of timelines chronologically. So if you want to check it out, I suggest you go to apronbump.com and you can go to the episodes tab and you can select whatever era or promotion you'd like to hear me cover with various podcast co-hosts and wrestlers and other personalities covering a bunch of different timelines in wrestling. You can select whatever you want, but you can select TNA and that'll bring you up to all of the TNA episodes that I've covered. Like I said, starting from Victory Road, 2004, working my way up through 04, all the way through 05, all the way through 06, and through 07 up to this point, May of 07, Sacrifice 07. Strongly suggest you do that. Follow me at Apron Bump on all the social medias. You can watch on YouTube. Give it a like. Give me a subscribe, comment. Leave a comment. Who's your favorite Basham brother? Leave a comment. It's a very hotly contested topic. What was I talking about before I started shilling out of nowhere? Before Shillosaurus Rex popped up. Oh yeah, TNA Sacrifice, a very good pay-per-view. We'll get into all of the nitty-gritty of why it was so good. It was a very well-paced show. Main event, the triple threat match. All the title matches, by the way, are triple threat matches, which is fun little theme there. We got Christian defending against Kurt Angle and Sting in a triple threat match. It's the last NWA title match you'll ever see. So that's fun. That's pretty significant. We got some old faces popping up, some that you probably wouldn't expect. We got fun X Division stuff. We got Tiger Mask, Low Key, Chris Sabin, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, Bob Backlund, like all these guys you associate with the X Division. They're all here. We got the tag team titles. LAX is here. If there's a headline here, Chris Harris, James Storm. We covered their debaucherous blindfold match from Lockdown '07. One of the worst matches I've ever seen personally, but they came back. They said, hold my beers. Let us go. Take these blindfolds off. Let us fucking wrestle. And they went out there and had one of the best matches in TNA history. It was just perfect for the start. We get into all of it. There's so much to get into. So I'm going to stop yapping. But first, let me give a big old shout out to my boy, Joe Holbert. You can follow him on the old Twitter gimmick at Joe Holbert. You can catch him on Wrestle Purist every now and again. Hey, catch him on Late Night Grin. All these various platforms where he gets into the current state of wrestling with a dash of old school stuff. So if you like what the apron bump gives you, well, by golly, you'll be more than pleased with my boy, Joey Bing Bong. Great follow on social media. Great dude. It was really fun having him on. And hopefully we'll be doing more in the future. So go give him a follow. All of his stuff will be in the description. YouTube, socials, his OnlyFans, all that stuff in the description. With that, I'm done babbling. Let's get to it. TNA Sacrifice 2007 with myself and Joel Holbert.
Honestly, when you mentioned it, I remembered like a couple of things on the show. For some reason, it had slipped my memory that it's the the famed Texas Death Match on this show. I was thrilled to go back and watch that again.
Dude, yeah, you got lucky because I've been covering all these TNA shows, chronologically, and it's very hit and miss. A lot of misses, a lot of devastating misses, and I'm talking like you swing the bat and it leaves your hand and it hits a kid in the crowd, like that, bad misses. But this show, one of the better TNA shows, probably. Well, first of all, I guess, how familiar are you with TNA? I guess this era of TNA.
I'm pretty familiar. It's always kind of a mixed bag, right? That's kind of part of the identity of this era of TNA. There's always creative weirdness, and there's some of that on this show. Certainly, we'll get into it. But I'm familiar, not an expert by any means, but I will say when we discussed doing this, I was like, 2007 TNA, that could be anything, really. And it turned out good, as you said. I mean, this is a good show.
Yeah, I mean, 1 month to the left or right, you might be having one of the worst shows of all time, but this one was probably one of the better shows they put on. I mean, we got all the titles on the line. We got not too much creative, not too much Russification on the show, although there is a bit. Little dash of Bashams on this show, which every wrestling show needs, I think. But yeah, just before we dive into all the matches and whatnot, just overall thoughts on the show that you checked out.
Yeah, I like the show. I was surprised at how quickly it flew by, to be honest, because sometimes with the way that they would put their pay-per-views together, that kind of scatterbrain approach, it would be like being on a roller coaster for 3 hours, But like, I thought this show flowed well. There were a couple things on it. You just referenced one of them that was like, is this a real thing, or have they edited this in years later in post? Speaking of such, as you noted to me, the YouTube edit, the upload for this is very funny. And has many different intricacies that we'll probably come across. But yeah, I enjoyed the show. It's a good show.
Yeah, no, you bring up how the show flowed, and that was kind of a big takeaway for me, because a lot of TNA shows, they'll start off with like it'll be like one big crescendo to the main event. Whereas in my opinion, I feel like a show should be hot, and then your peaks and valleys throughout the show. And that's what they gave us here. We start out with a hot X Division title match. You got that Texas Death Match in the middle, and you got the world title in the main event. So yeah, I would agree. The way the show flowed, in particular, I think was a standout. Stood out to me for sure.
Yeah, I think there's also a charm, and you're watching a lot of these, so maybe less so for you because it's more familiar. But for me, when I go back and watch old pay-per-views, there is a charm to just, this is what, 2 hours and 45. It's like. Yeah. Something to be said for that, right? It's kind of absent nowadays.
Ooh, you're telling me, man. This needed a 2-hour pre-show, maybe an intermish, a little raffle in the middle. You're from London. You're familiar with raffles and wrestling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just it does stand out. It's like, and it's not this isn't a 5-match 2 hour 45. There's actually a lot of wrestling on here. It's not, the flow is very refreshing, I think. Maybe there's some room for someone to bring this back, perhaps,
Yeah.
dare I say.
Novel concept.
Yeah.
Lots of wrestling on the wrestling show. It's just
Maybe, yeah.
bit of a wacky concept. But yeah, you brought up the YouTube version, which is what I watched.
Mhm.
There was some weirdness about like the intro package, there was no audio, at least for me, right? I don't know if that was
Same.
I don't know if there was like music copyright or whatever the deal is, but I was kind of disappointed because the intro, like the production, their vignettes TNA was
Mhm.
doing in this period were very good.
Yes.
Generally, they would get you in, like, I'm sure, the voiceover was like, oh, these wrestlers have sacrificed everything to, or some hokey bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about the overall production of this show, I guess?
There's a warm kind of a sense of, I guess, nostalgia is now the word. I guess it's been long enough, right? There is something to be said
Yeah.
for how they had a very, very particular, distinct style in terms of production. It's the kind of thing that they would go so far with it, almost to their detriment. But I appreciate how far, like your impression there is almost and certainly exactly how this came off, right? Like it would be the pay per view name would be attacked in the most literal fashion possible, and you'd have shots of people looking very
Right.
serious, and I find it to be charming, definitely.
Yeah, they always like have cutaways to like the moon landing or like the JFK assassination or Martin Luther King. Like, it's just like, this is how big TNA said. This is how big Sanjay Dutt is. He is exactly comparable to whatever, But speaking of which, we start off hot with a X Division Championship 3-way match. We got the champion Chris Sabin defending against Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt. Sabin, who was just the X Division champion, like in real time, like not a few months ago, right? So funny how things stay. Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, still a pair on TV.
Right.
So we're fresh into Black Machismo here. So this is, I think, his second pay-per-view as Black Machismo. So he's red hot right now. And the story here is that, Lethal and Dutt, they've been friends for, since they've been in the company. But Dutt is mad that Lethal is getting all of Kevin Nash's great character ideas. Black Machismo obviously was a hit. Kevin Nash is, he gave Sanjay Dutt the Oz gimmick. Let's see if that works. He gave him the Vinny Vegas, he's giving him all his hand-me-downs. And Sanjay Dutt is perturbed at this. And Chris Sabin is just trying to stir the pot to retain his title. But fun, hot way to start the show, I thought. I thought it was a really good match. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I thought this was tremendous. It's interesting. So many of these pay-per-views open with the like X Division moves match, right? And that's kind of like a familiar TNA play call. So when they came out, I was kind of like, this will be fun and probably not much more. This actually is very impressive in that, like, the story you just described is totally apparent throughout this match. Totally. And it also benefits Sabin because it allows him to get himself over as a heel because he is the guy who's kind of, pitting them against each other. It develops the Dutt and Lethal thing. And then beyond the story element, the action here is, as you would expect, spectacular. I mean, all of these guys are super in sync, and there's some great creativity. I mean, the X Division, the athleticism was one thing, but I always thought the creativity in terms of like the little sequencing and exchanges and stuff, this really came off well. And what did they clock in at? Like 13 minutes, maybe 14 minutes? It was perfect. Yeah, it was perfect because they had just enough space to get everything in there. I thought it was very, very strong opener. Very strong.
Yeah, every time I watch this era of the X Division, it's very like, because, if you watch stuff like the early 90s and then you watch stuff from today, like it's a very different spectrum of action and athleticism. I feel like they found this like sweet spot right here in like the late 2000s X Division because you had your high flying stuff like Sanjay Dutt's throwing out Asai moonsaults. You got Lethal coming off the top. You got Sabin doing all this, the hesitation drop kick and the springboards and all that. So the action flowed well throughout the entire thing, but I didn't think it was too much. I didn't think it was too cooperative. It wasn't too, quote unquote, Cirque du Soleil. I thought it felt like a struggle between everyone involved and the story and intertwined within it. I thought it was great.
I agree. And I think that's part of why, I mean, obviously Sanjay is now in a different role, but I think that's part of why Sabin and Lethal have been able to age kind of gracefully, right? Like, I mean, we're here all these years later, they're still involved. And Saban is certainly involved. He's been like a big news story even this
Right.
year. So I think, and that's part of. There's more depth to their game than some of the high flyers who emerged in the last decade. I think it is just like it's fireworks, so that's great. But I agree. I think there is a sweet spot you see in some of these matches for sure.
Yeah, and also,
Well, that's Stomper. That's Stomper.
sorry, I don't know what happened there. We just had a random mascot interrupt the podcast for no reason. I don't know what happened.
I had no memory of that deal.
Stomper, you don't remember Stomper? Let's hold on. Let me get a. I haven't really taken a good look. So is it a rabbit?
But the real key is the enthusiasm of Don West, who's just
The enthusiasm or confusion? Because listen to how the flow just stops. Because the match is happening, for context, and then it just cuts to this randomly.
Yes.
Well, that's Stomper. That's Stomper.
The pregnant pause after it's Stomper,
Yeah,
which you never hear in TNA. There's not a lot of dead air on commentary, and that
Certainly not.
just what the hell? I mean, I don't know how long Stomper hung around, but he's something I'll be keeping an eye on, I guess.
I love the idea of someone in like production, on the headsets, just yelling, tonight, it's Stomper, come on, come on.
Do you think wrestling today needs more mascots?
Maybe. I mean, I think if it gives us announcing moments like that, then certainly. Could you imagine like Taz now having to call a mascot? I mean, that's money. I don't know.
What wasn't there? Maybe I think it was WWE. There was like a match sponsored by something, and there was like a mascot
Probably.
behind the announcers. That
makes sense. Yeah, they've done a lot of sponsorship. That almost has to have happened at this point, right? There's been a lot of sponsorship deals.
Yeah. AEW needs a mascot just to wind Taz up, just purely for that.
And Nigel. So Nigel's reaction would be great. I'm sure.
Nigel would be the mascot, I think.
Tremendous.
But yeah, the match, fun near falls towards the end. There's one point where I noted it down as an inverted 69, where I think Jay Lethal was in the corner and Dutt was in a tree of woe, but it was at the same time. So Saban hits like a haluva kick on one guy and then follows it up with a hesitation drop kick. So there was some fun spots towards the end. Lethal hits the Macho Man elbow. Dutt breaks it up. You got a lethal combination. Dutt breaks it up again with a 450. The timing here, by the way, by Dutt is tremendous. But towards the end, Lethal and Dutt, they just can't get along. They get into a shoving match, distracting both of them. And then Saban's able to roll up Dutt and knock out Lethal at the same time and gets the win out of nowhere. So Saban retains, and Dutt and Lethal are none too pleased with each other, I guess.
Yes, indeed. And we get that great visual of Kevin Nash's wardrobe here in 2007, which is fabulous.
I guess I can't talk, but thoughts on Hawaiian shirt, Kevin Nash?
I'm all in, dude. I'm all in on it because it wasn't a Hawaiian shirt on the video game, but Kevin Nash's like TNA video game character was just him with like jeans and a shirt.
What a deep cut. Kevin Nash's TNA Impact on Xbox 360.
You gotta see it, man. It's just like he's the gray hair, jeans and a shirt, and he was just one of the wrestlers on the game. Incredible. Kind of sums it up, really.
It really does when you think about it. I love, by the way, Sanjay Dutt, because Nash gets in there to try to cool Lethal and Dutt just kicks Nash in the leg and then runs away.
The ultimate Achilles heel, quite literally.
Right to the quad, huh? Yeah. And then Nash is like, "Is there a fly in the arena?" And then Dutt skedaddles. So it's whatever. I don't know. Kevin Nash, Sanjay Dutt. Is that what we're building to? I'm all for it. Sure. Why not?
Big time match. Big time match. There's still money in that match. Just do it on Rampage sometime. Anything's possible.
You know what? You joke, but they've put weirder stuff on Rampage. So.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I'm all for it. I will be seated.
Yes.
So in between matches, we get a Robert Roode promo. pays to be rude, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get to him in a second. But then it cuts to earlier today at a fan meet and greet, I guess. Fans are lining up around the building to meet with Kip James and BG James, otherwise known as the New Age Outlaws. But as they're at this meet and greet, the Bashams attack. This is you mentioned this earlier. I completely just the Bashams in TNA just left my brain a long time ago. I'm sorry, it's not the Bashams. It's Basham and Damaja.
Yes, of course.
Storm. They put BG through a table on the concrete, and I guess he passed away because he's not wrestling later in the show. Which
he's not. What a shame.
Don't worry, more Basham talk later.
Yeah, we'll get to it. This is a very unfortunate piece of business going on with this.
It's what the people tune in to hear about is Basham and Damaja.
I guess so.
Just a little tease there. But before that, we got Jeff Jarrett taking on Robert Roode, of course, accompanied by the real CEO, Tracy Brooks. Do you remember what CEO stands for?
I do not. I can only imagine what it stands for.
The Chief Executive Offender.
Oh. At their best again. Just at their absolute best. Incredible.
And just thoughts on this?
Again, the announcing call cannot be ignored, but this
Don West.
Exploding excitement. The big thing that stands out there, if we're being honest, is the Double J ripping the TNA shirt like a true pro.
Did he? I didn't even notice.
Yeah, look at the.
Oh man, like Funaki in 04. Let me represent my brand.
Look at it.
He's what a glorious man. What a company guy. Love it.
Actually liked this kind of arc with Jeff. I don't know if it's a thing people generally liked, but this deal where he came back and was trying to like redeem himself as found it because he'd been the top heel for so many years before he went away. I think there's actually some compelling stuff here. This match is maybe not the best example of that, but you get a feel for it in like the pre-match video, right? Like some of the stuff he was doing, it was interesting.
Yeah, I think there actually is some good stuff here because this all stems from the Eric Young and Robert Roode feud. So Robert Roode, it's a whole backstory. We don't need to get into it, but essentially, Eric Young was his servant, Roode's servant. He didn't want to be. He was being abused. This is a period where the crowd is enamored with Eric Young. Super hot acts, comedy, whatever it is. People love him. But Eric said that he had a friend that was going to come and help him out. And that friend ended up being old Double J, which that clip I just played was when Jarrett stormed the ring, saved Eric Young from a beatdown from Robert Roode, and guitared the shit out of Tracy Brooks, which, I mean, I'm a slut for a good guitar shot. So big fan of that. But match here, it's very like, there's a match that doesn't seem like it happens, but it did. Like Jeff Jarrett as a babyface against Robert Roode before Beer Money. I thought it was a fine match. Just a good old Southern wrestling match.
For sure.
Big fan of the jump start during Jeff Jarrett's pyro. They're like fighting on the stage and the pyro's still, we paid for this pyro, damn it. Shoot it off. I don't care what you guys are doing. But yeah, good old, because Jarrett's, obviously the crowd loves him at this point, but still ultimately a battle of the heels here. So I think I left that story kind of go. There was one point where Jeff he hit like a pop-up low blow on Robert. So he like threw him up and then kicked him right in the dick and balls. And the ref is just slightly perturbed at it. Is like, come on. That was pretty much it. And then, so pretty good stuff here, I thought. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I agree. It's very like Jeff in that half of it is like meat and potatoes wrestling, right? Like headlock takeover. And then by the end of it, it's like every bell and whistle you can imagine. It's just the way Jeff's brain operates. But it's fun. Bobby Roode as a singles didn't find himself fully until after Beer Money, right? Even then it took him a little bit. And then once he was the it factor, he was tremendous. Here you kind of see the pieces, but he's not quite there. But it's a fun match. And it was. I mean, I'm sure it was a significant moment for Rude at the time. If you know, I remember we did a show about Bobby Roode recently, and when we looked at his single stuff, this was like, a big deal for him at the time on paper. So it's a fun match, and I enjoy Jarrett as a kind of fiery babyface, even if it is slightly jarring in this setting with that look, But it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely Rude's biggest match to date. After Team Canada, took a while to kind of find himself as a character. Now he's got something. He's got the CEO with him and the glittery robe and all the money, Wall Street kind of themes to his character. It was fun for what it was, but yeah, I think the star power was really starting to come to TNA at this point. So I think unfortunately the timing was probably off. But yeah, some good stuff. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of bells and whistles. We got my notes are a disaster here. So Rude throws in a chair in the ring. He picks it up, but the ref tries to grab it from Rude. They have a little tug of war, and the ref lets go of the chair, and the chair snaps back and hits Rude in the face. Jeff hits the stroke, but then Tracy pulls the ref, and then Robert Roode's got handcuffs, one of many handcuffs on this show. Wraps it around his fist like a brass knuckle and lays out Jarrett with it for a 2 count. Then Rude grabs the guitar, but the ref tries to take the guitar, but then Jeff takes advantage of this distraction, hits the stroke, or goes for the stroke, but Rude counters into the payoff, which is a fisherman's suplex, but Jeff trips him, goes into the figure 4, but Rude kicks him off. By the way, he exposed the turnbuckle in between some of this horseshit and laid Jarrett into the exposed turnbuckle and then hit the payoff for the win.
Just a simple finish. Just a simple.
Just A to B. No zigzags in between.
Exactly. It is wild, doing this now and like Jeff being like a thing again on the national stage. It's just it's absurd. It was very funny when he reemerged in this AEW run and he started doing these finishes again.
Right.
But it had been so long since anyone did them. I remember like the matches with the Acclaimed, people were like losing their mind at just classic Jeff Jarrett finishes, it's his thing. Like there's always like 10 pieces to the one finish. And usually it's a mess, but it can be fun basically it's horseshit, let's be honest, it's fun.
Right. It is horseshit, but it is fun. It can be both.
Yeah, it can be.
I guess a guilty pleasure. I'm not guilty for having pleasure in it, so I'm not even going to call it a guilty pleasure, but it was fun. It sounds convoluted, and it was, but as it was happening, it was fine.
Yes,
I was into
absolutely.
it.
I agree.
But Rude gets a big win here on pay-per-view against a guy who was the cornerstone of this company. And but after the match, because I know what you guys are thinking, this needs a little more to it, I think. So Robert Roode, beats on Jeff after the match, goes to hit him with a guitar, but Jeff counters and locks him in a figure 4. Tracy, who was she was thrown out of the arena earlier, she comes back, grabs the guitar, goes to hit Jeff with it, really kind of zones in, really wants to make sure that shot is right on target. So it takes a few minutes to aim. And Eric Young sprints to the ring to make the save and locks in Tracy in a figure 4. So we got dual figure 4s, figure 8. Yeah. So that's it. That's all, right?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. That was the second match of the night.
Right. All of that to say, because Jarrett, I think he takes another hiatus after this, because I know he's dealing with his wife being sick at this moment. And so I don't think he sticks around for too much longer. Rude, I forget when exactly Beer Money starts. It might be another year after this.
Yeah,
I don't remember what the hell he does till then, but ultimately it's kind of an inconsequential match. But
I think he does I think he's one of Booker T's programs when Booker comes in. So
that sounds right.
That's a treat that's ahead of you. That run is that's interesting.
Can't wait. I'm salivating. Speaking of things I'm salivate about, we got Tyson Tomko here. We got Scott Steiner. We got Christian. We got AJ. We got the Christian Coalition backstage. Although I don't think Steiner was really a part of it. I think he skedaddles from this faction before they start calling it that. But So Christian, this whole faction, they all got matches. Christian's the defending world champion. Steiner and Tomko are going for the tag titles, and AJ's facing Joe later in the show. So it was a little fun little promo segment of all four of these guys. Steiner and Tomko, they just can't get along, you know? You hate to see it.
Yeah, Steiner is unbelievable here.
This is just a lot of
incredible.
characters thrown at you at once. Just thoughts.
Yeah, Christian is like, he's the straight man in this segment. It's insane. He's like the
Somehow.
one just playing it. Because AJ, I don't know if people even realize this, they haven't seen it, but like when Russo got the book, AJ became like a cartoon character.
Yes.
And I think it actually ultimately helped him progress as a talent, but it was a real talking point at the time. He's like absurd on this show. He's way over the top. But yeah, it's a fun act.
Yeah, he's kind of like a bumbling idiot
Yeah,
at this point,
Pretty
which
much, yeah. Which, well,
in hindsight, yeah, maybe not too far off. Maybe he's just who he is. But it was fun. It gave him a different layer to his character because before he was just, the good wrestler, and ultimately he would come back to being the world beater that he is. So
right.
no harm, no foul.
Yeah, I think it worked out.
But after that, we got Rhino versus Christopher Daniels with a Sting mask and a bat. Not a lot of so on the impacts leading up to this, AJ and Daniels were kind of buddy, and then you had Rhino and Joe were teaming up. So we had some matches between those two teams, and on this show we got just two singles match branching out of that. So not a super story driven match here, but Rhino Daniels, it was kind of what you would expect. We got a gnarly bat shot for the finish, but I don't know. I guess what do you think of this iteration of Christopher Daniels here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd completely forgotten this, like, kind of attempt push. I mean, everyone wanted Christopher Daniels to get a shot, like the main event scene, and this was really as close as. Not, I think it's among the closest he got examples of that in terms of this weird like chapter with Sting. And immediately what came back to me is the match it leads to, which, you'll get to that when you get to that, so I'll leave that for you to discover.
I don't remember him and Sting having like a program, but did they?
Well, your next pay-per-view, you'll see the match and you'll realize why you don't remember it. It's very, very brief. I don't think Stinger was too convinced.
Interesting.
So yeah, it all came back to me, and like it's a weird. I don't know. I feel like there was a bunch of chances they had to like actually elevate Daniels. And it feels like in classic TNA fashion, they chose like the worst possible time with the worst possible shtick.
Right.
But that's what they landed upon. And this match is it's like openly a bridge to something with Sting, right? Like as you said, he comes out with the mask. It's like, I don't know. It's solid because these guys are very professional, but it doesn't really go beyond that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just a fine match. I thought Rhino's is kind of a utility guy you can throw out there for anybody that needs a match. And then Daniels, outside of the goofy, comes out in the Sting mask and the bat. I thought it was a cool look for him. The beard, the trunks. I thought the whole look worked for him. It was a fine match, but I got some questions about this finish. So let's listen to this chair shot here.
Trademark. God, did you hear that?
Oh, shit. We don't need more Tracy. So what do we think this bat was made out of? Was it a real bat? Is it a shoot bat, brother?
Well, I mean, if it was a shoot bat, if it was like Rhino would never have recovered from it. I mean, he nailed him, right? It was a hellacious sound. I don't know.
Well, the thing you're forgetting is that he's a rhino.
Good call. I hadn't considered that. Yeah.
Yeah. Horns. Wait, rhinos have horns, right? No, they have. Wait, do rhinos have horns? I'm like, it's like Mandela effect.
Sure.
Hold on. Let me take a brief image search of the rhinos. Yeah, they have horns. They got a few horns. So I think maybe the bat is hitting. Hold on, let's take one more look at this.
Okay.
Sting trademark. God, did you hear that?
Good Lord, man.
Yeah, because
Sting trademark. God, did you hear?
This isn't like a Triple H. Let me grab the end of it and hit you horizontal. This is just a baseball swing to the face with this bat, and hopefully it was some cork in that or something. I don't know.
Well, what makes it funnier is that it has no effect really on Rhino, to your point about him being a Rhino, because he, other than getting pinned, he is then immediately on the charge for revenge. So,
right.
It was a great sound, but it didn't really stick much, unfortunately, because of that. So,
yeah, you might have How do you take down a rhino? I guess like a gun. Probably
Yeah.
maybe should have shot him. I don't know.
Maybe. Imagine Don West's call of that if Chris Daniels got a 100
Oh my god! It would have been the same tone as
The
Tracy
same.
getting hit with a guitar. It would have been just because he gets to a level you can't get above it, but it's for everything.
Yeah.
But yes, Pat shot. It led to the win at least, I guess,
It did.
for Daniels. But then Rhino gets on the mic. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna kick your ass," which is like, do you need to get on the mic and tell him? I don't know. I think he got a fun little bit where Rhino chases Daniels to the back through the tunnel, and then it cuts to commentary. They're kind of talking about whatever, and then you hear like a ruckus in the background, which I guess we're led to believe that that's Rhino hitting Daniels with a chair backstage, because then he throws Daniels out through the tunnel hole, which is always a hilarious visual. And now Daniels is all of a sudden busted open, and Rhino I think hits him with another chair and he sets up 2 chairs in the ring, sets up like a chair table, and then goes to pile drive Daniels off the second rope through these chairs. Security, thank God, rushes to the ring and stops it. And commentary is like, "Oh, come on! Why? I wanted to see that." I guess Don West wanted to see Daniels be paralyzed. I don't know.
I don't know. It was something. The initial part of this where Rhino's chasing him and Chris just like refuses to run away for a while was wild, right? He's just like slowly backtracking. He's like, "Run, man! He's a rhino.
Yeah.
There's a ramp here and everything. Run!" But yeah, this appeared to be just to set up that segment we get later that is very poorly mic'd and hard to make out, which we'll get there when we get there. But it was, I guess, it was a cool visual. I guess.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Mm.
But after that, we got a 2-on-1 handicap match. It was supposed to be a tag team match. It was supposed to be the James Gang, or VKM, as they are known here. Kip James, BG James, Billy Gunn Road Dogg, taking on the team of Basham and Damaja, along with Christy Hemme. Yes, it's those Bashams. Doug and Danny. I think it's Doug is Basham, Danny is Damaja. Do I have that right?
Sure.
Who's your favorite Basham? Real hard-hitting question.
Well, my immediate thought when I saw them here was this must have been a Cornette thing, because I've only seen the Bashams as the Bashams. But Cornette always would swear back in the day that they were like prodigies in OVW, right? Wasn't that like the big thing?
Wasn't it just one of them? I think it was Basham that was,
It was-
because he's OVW guy now, right?
Yes, Doug Basham, right? Is that,
Yes,
are we
yeah.
correct? Because he's the infamous tale of the guy who had the long hair and they shaved it. That's the famous. I'm pretty sure that's the story of him. However, it has to be said, the Bashams are the least of our concern here. If we're being really there.
What's the concern here, Joe?
Well, the video package for this match was jarring to a level where I had to pause it like 3 different times just to like gather myself as to how insane it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the equivalent of playing like a Russo siren over the top of a pay-per-view. Like it's like everything Billy said or Kip said was like worse than the last thing he said. It was and he's the baby face. I mean, it was unbelievable. This is not that long ago, man. This is not like
Dude. I can't remember. What are some of the things Kip said? It
was pretty strong. It was pretty strong. I recommend anyone revisit the tape. But my goodness, he was aggressive here. He was, and again, they were the baby faces, and Road Dogg is just, this whole act is deeply embarrassing. This is a very sad, these fellas. Very sad.
Yeah. And looking at Kip James, my thought was, this dude looks older here than he does now. It's like, this is all very bad. Yeah, to your point, babyface heel, like, it's all very confusing because the premise, so we're off of, is VKM formed as a way to kind of call out DX from the other channel, which that's a whole thing.
Yes.
Never materialized into anything, of course. But then it's like, what does VKM do now? Let's throw out Christy Hemme, who's not been a character. She's been like a ring girl or whatever they called him. All of a sudden, Christy Hemme is pissed that the women aren't getting opportunities, which valid point, but she's the heel here. Kip James, babyface. Let me tell you something, you little slut. And it's a quote. But and that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's like
Yes.
you don't belong in the ring. Make me a sandwich. It's literally to that level.
Yes.
And it's '07, like you said, not that long ago. So the whole story, if you want to call it that, is Hemi's been trying to recruit Sunday Night Heat tag teams to try to take out the James Gang. So she tried it with the Heartthrobs, Antonio and Romeo. They came into TNA for a bit, and it was very short-lived. They lost a pay-per-view match to the James Gang. And then I think it was on Impact or something, Hemi recruited Serotonin, which was Raven's faction. They had Kazarian and Michael Shane. That was also a failure. So the James Gang, they're just demolishing any team, any 2004 Velocity team that Christy Hemme throws their way. Maybe a third jobber tag team is a charm. So now she has recruited the Basham brothers. And Basham and Damage. What does Damager mean?
Your guess is as good as mine. It was.
Is it just Damager, but said stupid?
Sure, that works for me. I don't know. It was interesting. The way this whole thing was framed was fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those deals where you kind of like, I get you have to have undercard angles, but like, what's the intended outcome of such a project as this? Like dedicating multiple pay-per-view undercard matches to the James Gang versus Christy Hemme's teams.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they had plans for the Bashams here because they do end up getting the win over Kip. It's a handicap match, so of course they should have. I think first of all, Damager, Danny Basham, I believe. He spitting image of 2003 John Cena here with the jorts, the boots, the hair. He looks just like him if you squint your eyes a little bit. But
comparisons end there, I assume.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Kip gets in there. He starts throwing bodies after getting beat down for a while, but ultimately Damager hits the brain damage, which I believe was like a choke bomb of some sort, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then Basham with maybe one of the worst diving headbutts I've ever seen in my life. For the win. So
and it's just flat. They just beat. I mean, I'm not that I have a problem or care, but I mean, this wasn't really very exciting from a professional wrestling point of view.
That is the headline. This just wasn't very exciting. That's pretty much.
They just beat him, and they're like, well, they got it done. It's like, yeah, man, sure, I guess.
As they should have.
Yeah.
Kip James, who I guess we like. I don't know, but I don't know, man. And then the Bashams attack after the match. Basham hits a Rough Rider onto Kip. And then Lance Hoyt makes the save because I guess his flight was delayed, so that's why he wasn't able to take BG's spot. Because Lance Hoyt, aka Lance Archer, had been friends with the New Age Outlaws, but I guess his plane was sabotaged by Christy Hemme. Ever think about that?
Have to tune in on Thursday to find out, I guess, right? The details reveal themselves.
I'll keep you abreast of the situation there. Well, now we got some pretty darn good stuff here. We got a Texas death match. Chris Harris versus James Storm. AMW explodes right here. 5 months of build up. James Storm, when they broke up, it was a beer bottle to the eye. It blinded Chris Harris in one eye, so he had to wrestle with a eye patch. And then they had. Have you seen the blindfold match that they had at the?
I have, yeah. And I think it explains why they go so hard here. To be honest, it explains a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. My note here is they had a great match out of spite. It seems like it was like, just give us the ball. Let me dribble. That was basically what this was. And holy shit, this was. I don't think you can get bloodier than James Storm was. Like, I don't think you could have more blood on your face. It was like, because I recently watched that Jay Briscoe Samoa Joe cage match, and at that point, that was the bloodiest match I had seen. Because the curdling blood, like the solid blood hanging from the face, is brutal, and you kind of got a little bit of that here. I mean, there's a lot to get into here. Just overall thoughts on this Texas death match here.
It's every bit as good as I remembered it being, and its reputation. It's honestly an all-time TNA match. And what's crazy is it's good the whole way through, but the first half of it is like it rocks, but it's very familiar in the way that it rolls, and they kind of crowd brawl, which in the Impact Zone is like there's always crowd brawl. It's all very familiar, but at some point, and I think the blood is a big part of it, it just like explodes into something more than that, right? Kind of transcends the way it was trending.
Mhm.
It becomes like a horror scene by the end, and the finish itself is like actually cinematic is used so often in wrestling now, and it's like it's kind of a cliche.
Yeah.
This finish is like actually cinematic in the best way. It's like rewarding. It pays off the whole story.
Mhm.
God, this just kicks ass. It is incredible. And as you mentioned, the blood combined with the desperation both guys wrestle with. There's so little time here given to like just setups. And the one time there is time given, it's the table where as soon as he gets up on the apron, Harris, boom, takes him off. Like it's
Right.
just it's special. It's probably the best singles match of both guys' career. I would imagine.
I would say so. Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
the same thing. It was, yeah, the urgency here was very, it was felt. Like you
Yes.
felt like, well, I mean, the whole magic of wrestling is suspending your disbelief into believing these guys actually hate each other. And I was sucked in throughout all of this, which is, says it all. I mean, the blood, there's one point where Storm pulls out a table from under the ring and his blood falling from his face just coats the entire bottom of the table just from being there. Crazy stuff. But yeah, like you said, it starts off with some crowd brawling. Like a Storm comes out. Harrison then comes out wearing an AMW t-shirt, which is fun. But then rips it off. Very thematic there. Starts hot and heavy on the ramp, fight through the crowd. There's one point, Harris gets the upper hand in the crowd. They're like by the barricade. Chris Harris gets in the ring, grabs James Storm's beard, chugs it, and then throws out an ECW Sabu dive to the crowd from the top rope, which is just nuts. And should be said, this is a Texas death match, so you have to pin or submit your opponent, and then it becomes last man standing. What do you think of that stipulation, by the way?
I prefer the way they did it here to the way the traditional way of pin 30 seconds to reset, then a 10 count. That is like, to me, that kills all the match momentum. I don't love it, but I prefer the way that, because at least it's moving here. When there's the reset period, it's like the match gets halted at every turn, but they go crazy enough. It doesn't affect this match, thankfully. So
right. And I think the key here was that there weren't too many falls throughout this match. I think there's maybe like 2 or 3. So they didn't dilute it to the extent where it's like, oh, these guys just getting beat with anything. But every time somebody got pinned, it was justified. But Storm gets up before the 10 count, fight back to the ring. Harris at some point is in a tree of woe, hanging, but like towards the outside of the ring. So his head is up against the post. Storm with a concerto, smashing his head against the post with the chair. Gnarly looking. Gnarly.
Yeah. I think that's the point where the match like explodes. And that's where it just it becomes something even, truly special, I think.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is what we're getting. This is not the blindfold match. This is true, just 2 Texas boys beating each other up. In the ring, there's a table set up. James Storm goes for a Frankensteiner off the top rope, which I didn't see coming. But Harris blocks it. They scuffle on the mat for a bit, and then Harris hits a catapulting Storm's face into the bottom of the table, which looking at it, from face value, it's like, oh, I don't know about that. But when you think about it, all those metal pieces on the bottom of the table, that's actually probably a pretty devastating way to go about it.
Yes.
And this is where Storm gets busted open, gushing blood. Both guys are gushing blood at this point. James Storm hits his Eye of the Storm through the table, which is like a spinning, razor's edge throw of some sort, which I always liked.
Absolutely.
The fact he was able to, pinpoint it through the table is pretty impressive. So Storm pins Harris there, but Harris gets back up before 10. This is the point where Storm, pulls out the table, covers it in blood, sets up the table on the outside, gets on the aprons, which you brought up earlier, and then Harris spear through the apron, he kind of went through the table. He like almost head planted on the floor, but it still looked good. Super kick. Storm hits a super kick into the chair, into Harris's face, which is not a spot that always looks good, but it looked particularly gruesome here.
Yeah.
Trash can lid duels, fun. Harris has this catatonic on a trash can for a 2 count. And then Miss Jackie says, I've had enough of this, is what she says. Who has, been with James Storm. She comes out, tries to interfere, but then Gail Kim comes out and neutralizes this, takes out Jackie. They've been feuding for a while. They fight to the back. And then the finish. I mean, just lay out this finish. You said it was cinematic. I agree. It was
you have the
finish.
Yeah, you have the kind of first you get the shot of Storm with the beer bottle, right? Is the first shot you get, I believe, and then it cuts and you have Harris, and it's like the standoff, and of course this all goes back to the split and the angle they shot to begin with, and what set up the ill-fated blindfold match with the eye injury. But really, what makes it cinematic to me is they basically have whoever's fastest to the trigger, and Harris, of course, wins that. But it's Harris's reaction to winning that, right? That kind of like horror movie scream of "I've killed the monster." That's the moment, right? And the blood, and like, oh my god, this is a match that a lot of people who like kind of dismiss TNA altogether. Everyone should watch this match. This could play at any point through history, and it would tear the house down. It's that good. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, it's cinematic is the word for it. It's a very Western.
Yes,
it's literally a Western duel who can be faster on the draw, and Harris happened to be quicker here, just thematically, just harkening back to what started this feud, like you said. So it was perfect. Harris hits him with the bottle, gets the pin, and Harris almost makes it up before the count of 10, but just misses it, and so Harris gets the win. Very dramatic finish. Both guys are bloody as can be. But don't let it breathe at all. Let's get right to this fucking Sting promo. Like literally maybe 5 to 10 seconds of celebration. And then we're off to the next thing, which I don't know if they're like time constraints or what, but that's very nitpicky, I know, but it's like, maybe just give it a little time to raise his hands a little bit. Yeah.
Because it isn't just a great match either. It's the match to blow off the split of a like classic TNA team. Like you're absolutely correct. It should have time to bleed. So time to breathe, and it certainly had time to bleed. But time to breathe, and what would have helped that if only there was a Basham's match on here that we could have trimmed. We could have. I mean, I know it didn't go long, but we could have just spared ourselves some time. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just not have the match. Maybe just have the backstage beatdown and maybe do it on Impact. I don't know.
Yeah. Or don't do it all.
Or just forget that they existed.
Yeah, sure.
That's also a thought. You're right. But yeah, this is like so it cuts to Sting, who he's next to Christopher Daniels, and he's scolding Daniels. It's what it seems like. Like you said, it's poorly mic'd, so you can't hear. It's also, the crowd's fucking going crazy for this, match of the year they just saw. Boy, they got to turn to the screen and look at stupid ass Christopher Daniels and Sting? I don't think so. I don't know. I guess, like you said, it leads to something at Slammiversary. I don't know. Things happen. Sting said some stuff.
He did. It's just funny that the technical difficulties basically render the Rhino angle to be like entirely useless. Go respect it.
It's about the journey. It's about how we got there. I had a fun climb, as Miley Cyrus said. But boy, howdy, we got a little change of pace here. We got a 4-way, I guess, X Division showcase here. We got Alex Shelley versus Senshi, aka Low-Ki, versus Jerry Lynn versus Tiger Mask. I love the placement of this on the card. Yes. Kind of not a cool down match, but it's definitely a tone shift. It's just like a very easily digestible match, just a pleasantly fun match to watch. Nothing too story heavy here. Well, I guess maybe there's some stuff at the end, but I enjoyed it. There's any spots, I guess, in particular stand out to you?
Nothing in particular spot-wise, but I agree. It's kind of like a palate cleanser, right? Like very just tidy. Everyone gets a little spotlight. Obviously, all these guys are great. You get to have the Tenay is so thrilled the Tiger Mask's on the show, and he gets to do his whole history lesson.
Fucking loves him. He was in a cartoon, Joe. I don't know if you heard.
The best thing about when Tenay would do the history lesson alongside Don is like the idea of you could actually imagine that Don is hearing all this for the first time, which makes it infinitely better. Yeah. Always, whenever I watch shows from this era and this decade, honestly, when you see Low-Ki or Senshi, every single time you see him, it's like, man, he really If only he'd have just go out of his own way. You know, that dude was,
Mm-hmm.
even in this match, which is really their wrestling kind of restrained, he just jumps off the page. But what was impressive about this match was they did like the first half of the match, the crowd is recovering, right, from the Texas Death. But they
Right.
get them on board, and by the end, they're into it, and there's more of that creativity we saw in the opener. It's obviously not as good as the opener, but very tidy match, I thought. I liked it.
Yeah, and just a fun blend of styles too. You got Shelly,
Yeah.
the technical stuff. Senshi is obviously just the explosive martial arts. Jerry Lynn. You got Tiger Mask, who I think was in a cartoon. So lots of colors, lots of fun. Key Key was definitely the standout here. That up kick he did
Oh my
to
God.
Tiger Mask, which sounds like such a mundane spot, but just the way it's like he like pops up as he's about to do a kip up, but then he just like tilts his hips and kicks him from the ground. It's just so smooth.
Yeah, he was spectacular. My goodness.
Shelly throws out a top rope jawbreaker, which is fun. Tiger Mask with an avalanche butterfly suplex of some sort, but ultimately Shelly goes for a Frankensteiner off the top on a Jerry Lynn, but Lynn rolls through it and gets the quick win out of nowhere. Fun little
Indeed.
finish there, I thought. And like I
agree.
said, no stakes really, just some fun graps is all
For
this
sure.
was.
Yeah, I must say that I was surprised. I didn't realize Jerry Lynn was still around by this point. May 2007. It kind of caught me off guard. I'm wondering now. I was kind of trying to figure out like when he was, because I don't think he's been around much longer in TNA at this point. I could be wrong. I may be way off. He might be there for years. I don't know.
Well, he's ROH champion within like a year or two,
Right.
so it can't
Yeah.
be too much longer.
I always think of him in like the early, like the Asylum years of TNA. I'm aware he went beyond that. Clearly, here he is in 07. But yeah, it kind of stood out to me. But as you said, a very quirky collection of talent here, which was something TNA at their best would do often, right? Like kind of throw these interesting pairings together. So
Mm-hmm.
cool example of that here.
Yeah, but I was watching this match and I was like, this is pretty good, but I think it could use some Bob Backlund. But lo and behold, they gave it to me. Bob Backlund storms the ring afterwards because Alex Shelley, he attacked Jerry Lynn after the match. Chris Sabin's in because this is kind of like we're building towards the Motor City Machine Guns here. So they're like starting to be a pair here. So they gang up on Jerry Lynn, and then former WWF champion Bob Backlund gets in the ring. Clears house. Just shits on everybody because he's Bob Backlund. You big Bob Backlund guy?
Not really, but I do remember this like chapter and this run because I'm pretty sure he has a singles match with Shelley.
Yep,
think-
at the next pay-per-view, I think.
There you go.
His
Yeah,
anniversary?
and I'm pretty sure he looks kind of good in that because Bob Backlund is insane and just is always like ready to wrestle.
Right.
Would famously like call the WWF office like every 6 months and ask to come back because it's
Let me
just
get
what
one
he
more
does.
run.
Yeah, like he's an interesting character. That's the way I guess the best way I put it. But for whatever reason, I remember this. It's just very funny that this is the thing that like launches the Motor City Machine Guns in TNA.
So you're saying the seed that was planted in the ground was
I
Bob
guess.
Backlund doing stair steps, and out rose a plant of Motor City.
It's the only conclusion I can draw. I think it's just this. The evidence is right in front of us, man.
Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. So that's the thing that's going to be happening. Also, a thing that happens is a World Tag Team Title 3-way match. I guess all titles are defended in 3-way matches on this show, which is fun. So Team 3D, the champions here, Brother Ray, Brother Devon, they just became Grand Slam champions, winning the one titles that have eluded them throughout their career, the NWA titles. And they are defending against the team of Scott Steiner and Tomko versus LAX, Hernandez and Homicide. You laughed at Scott Steiner and Tomko. Do you not think they're a good tag team?
Well, it's more. No, I don't. But it's more. The reason I laughed was the idea of putting these three teams together is like insane to me. And we'll get into it. To their credit, they like kind of pull it off, sort of,
Right.
by hook or by crook. But there's like three different approach because LAX could be suited to a high spot triple threat tag, right? Like they can,
Mhm.
Hernandez is the power star, Homicide's obviously great. Team 3D are in interesting form here. And Scotty, I mean, bless him, he is terrible in this match. God bless. I mean, he's trying his best, but my goodness.
You don't think Tomko was enough to wrangle him into something special?
I don't. I mean, because the thing with Scott in TNA is sometimes the crowd would like bring something out of him where he would kind of get into it and do some cool stuff. Not often, but sometimes. There's a famous example a couple of years after this when Booker T is leaving the promotion and Scott wants to stay in the promotion, so he has like this awesome performance. This is not that. This is everything he does looks bad here. His punches here are, my God,
Not good.
it's he's in very unfortunate form, and that's not even getting to our friends Bubba and Devon, who are.
This look for Bubba in particular.
Oh man, it's bad.
The jeans, the jeans, the t-shirt. He's wearing a t-shirt here, right? Not a cutoff.
I couldn't get past the jeans. I don't know. And he has like the wristbands and
I started at the feet and worked my way up. Yeah, I don't know. he doesn't look. It's like I've mentioned this before. There are wrestlers that can wrestle in jeans. Like we've seen it. But they need to be like distressed jeans. They need to be like worn in jeans, maybe little either fitted or baggy. This just felt he like went to Sears, got a pair of jeans, came to the arena, got a fresh, clean t-shirt off the merch rack. And he just looks like a fan that got in the ring and started wrestling. And he got deep on there. He's wet. I think he's probably the wettest one in this match. Scott probably might have him might contest with that, but yeah, so I'm because I think there were some 3D sucks chants going on here.
Rightly so.
Right? Which, like, yeah, rightly so. So I don't know if maybe they're approaching a heel turn. I hope so, because they need some sort of
their act at this point. I'm pretty sure they do turn soon, because their act at this point is like legitimately just we've won many tag titles. Like,
yeah,
they're so lame here as baby faces. I think once they're heels, it gets like fun from a character point of view, even if the matches are the matches at this point. But yeah, this is a weird time for the tag division. There's like different directions they could go in, and I think they always chose the wrong one, sadly.
Maybe just throw the Bashams in this match, make it a 4-way.
Look, if this match was the Bashams versus LAX, it might have been pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, it may be. Maybe.
Unironically, that would have been better than this, I think.
Yes, I think almost certainly, actually, because it was apparent that we're going back to the Bashams now. The Bashams, I think, they had no chance of having a good match, right? They were having a handicap match with Kip James. Homicide is great in this match.
And LAX as an act in itself is
money.
Super great right now, yeah.
They were a great act, and they peak right at the start, and the further they get into the run, the less they do with them. It's a shame. But Homicide is particularly great here because he's like the only guy who can give this any speed, right? Any like excitement. Yeah. But I'll say this, the second half is better than the first, and they do kind of get the people into it, and it isn't a disaster by the end. It's okay. The first chunk of this is like really quite bad though.
Yeah, because like the dynamics here, so you got Team 3D, who, like you said, they're just kind of a bland act, like, hey, we're fighting champions kind of deal. And then you got Steiner and Tomko. It's more about the internal struggle within those two rather than them trying to win the titles. And then you got LAX, who, like we said, a great act in and itself, but they just lost the titles. They had a pretty long, drawn-out feud with Team 3D. They just had an electrified steel cage match, which that's a whole other thing. But now they're still kind of in the picture, but now it's just the same feud with Scott Steiner and Tomko. Like, I don't know, man. You got LAX, like every team doesn't like each other, but the two heel teams kind of like each other at some points. It was a very chaotic match, I guess, is how I would put this. I mean, there was Bubba like annihilates Scott Steiner with a German suplex at one point. Right. Steiner fights back with the T-bone. There's a few fun bright spots here. Steiner and Tomko go for the old Steiner Brothers Doomsday, but Homicide counters into a roll-up for 2. So it's at this point, it's like, okay, we're getting some fun near falls. There's some energy to this. Hernandez with a really impressive dive to the outside onto the Dudleys. Hernandez is starting to get pretty hot at this point, too. The crowd's really into him. But towards the end, that darn miscommunication between Tyson Tomko and Scott Steiner Tomko goes for a boot onto one of the Dudleys, accidentally hits Scott, and then Tomko eats a 3D, and the Dudleys retain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the end of this, because I know what you're thinking. We need another run-in from a face from the past. So as Tomko and Steiner, they're like scuffling. They have a really shitty brawl after the match. I'm gonna tell you this. One of my pet peeves in wrestling is when guys are brawling, whether it's like backstage or after a match, and it's goosh. Like, no, it should be like it should be like a hockey brawl.
Yeah.
But this is just a really poorly orchestrated brawl here. But then Rick Steiner storms the ring. Yes, Rick Steiner he partners up with Scott, of course, takes out Tomko. I was half expecting them to turn on Scott and them have a match at Slammiversary. I don't know if maybe that happens. I don't know.
It might, I don't know.
Who knows? Anything's game. What'd you think? I don't know. What'd you think of the whole like ending stretch there, I guess?
I don't know. The Steiner Brothers in 2007 is an insane project to try. Like, and let's be clear, not that there's any value in Scotty as a singles by this point, but at least with Scott, the whole thing with him in TNA is like he's a fun personality, right? Like he does the silly promos and he's over the top and so on and so forth. But this completely erases that because all it does is remind you of how awesome they were in 1991, and it's like,
right.
I don't know. It's not what the promotion needed, believe it or not. I don't think it's the right. I could be wrong on this. You're going to find this out as you go through the timeline, but I think this gets like dramatically changed because soon Scotty's about to have the injury, the really scary injury he sustained in Puerto Rico. The throat injury. That happens like really soon after this, I'm pretty sure. And then you eventually will get the Steiners in a reunion of sorts down the line. So it didn't quite go as planned, I think is a generous way of putting it, but probably a bad idea to begin with because Scott in like 1998, Rick Steiner is done, so what he looked like here is I wouldn't want to imagine at this point, honestly.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, man. Watching this show, all signs point to the Steiner brothers versus the Basham brothers, which, I mean, come on. Printing money.
Bound for glory, brother. Sounds like they're WrestleMania to me. NWA World's Tag Titles maybe hanging in the balance. Oh my goodness. Oh, does it get any bigger?
Imagine. I don't think it does, really.
No.
It's the very stoppable force versus the very movable object. I think that is fortunately a throat injury, I guess, takes that away from us, unfortunately. Yes. But maybe it could still happen, right? They're all still around. So
history, it needs these kind of what ifs, It's very important. It's
this is really one of the biggest what ifs of pro wrestling history, I think.
I think Austin Hogan, Basham Steiner's 07. I think that's the big two.
That is the peak for Steiner's. Basham's 07's the year it needs to happen.
Has to be 07. Yeah, so it's when they're both there. The form. My goodness.
Incredible. Yes. So Kurt's here. He's in Sting's nest. His set, I think he calls it.
This made me so mad.
What's wrong?
This is peak Russo. Like I understand wanting to explain things, but does there have to be like a literal area of the building where Sting has like lighting effects? Like, can't he just be Sting? Does it have to be explained to us? Like, God, it's just who does this help? Like.
So Kurt's in Sting's set. He calls it a set, by the way. He's not like, I'm in Sting's his nest.
Yeah.
The crow's nest. No, I'm in this set. This is a garage door behind me. Can you see it? Cut the lighting effects. It's like flickering dark lights. But now get it. There's chains hanging in the background. Kurt says, I don't need mood lighting. I don't need face paint. And I don't need a holler like, and I quote, some biatch. Biatch. That is very 2007. But we'd be remiss. I forgot to bring up that Sting called Kurt a gym teacher in the promo earlier. Maybe that's a part we didn't hear. I don't know. And Kurt's like, I'm not a gym teacher. You know what you are, Sting? A cartoon character. I'm a wrestler. You just wear face paint and you're, I don't know, you're a biatch. We're building to the main event. Does this get you hyped for the main event?
Absolutely not. I think it's impressive that TNA like appeared to make it like a mission to remove any mistake from their main event stars.
Yeah.
Just let him be Sting. Like, do we have to explain that he's like a dork that goes over and asks for the lights to flash while he does his promos? Like, can't he?
How dare
And
you?
Kurt is out of control here. Like,
Oh, he's
this version of Kurt is every time you see him, you go, "Oh my god!" Like, and he hasn't been here. How long is he into the promotion at this point?
not super. He came in. This is May. He came in around September, October.
Yeah. And he's a heel already, right? That's what he's just Kurt Angle.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Nor did they.
I think he's just. Yeah, nor did they. I don't know. He's just Kurt. I don't know. He's just, Perk Angle is the meme nowadays, but you can see it in his eyes at this point.
Yeah,
he's getting
control.
there.
Yeah, indeed.
He's a madman. But I guess we'll talk more about that in the main event. But before that, we got peak TNA. We got, what TNA is: Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. Again, not a super story-driven match. And this isn't, their best match, but it's a very good match. I mean, the worst Samoa Joe AJ match is going to be a good match.
Yeah.
So, not that this is the worst either, but it was just I want to call it a cool down match because this is like the right before the main event, so it's kind of in that position. But it's just another kind of just pleasantly fun match. You got AJ. We talked about him earlier. Is kind of like just a dorky, bumbling buffoon with the hairy chest now, and then Joe's Joe. He's pretty much, that's what he is. And you get all the classics in this match with a little some other stuff at the end, I guess. But I thought it was a pretty good match. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I liked it. It's very much is like a greatest hits kind of cut of this pairing, right? And like, it isn't their worst match, but it probably is their least, I guess, notable pay-per-view match, right? Just because of where it's placed. And as you said, like the context is just like, it's a way to get Joe a win on pay-per-view. In a weird way, I kind of find there's an element of this that I think is kind of sad in the sense that like Dom West has that great call before the match where he talks about how eventually this is going to be for the world title because these are like their TNA,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, AJ gets the belt, AJ's had it and gets it back, Joe gets the belt, but it's wild to think that a decade after this, these guys would wrestle at SummerSlam and would both be viewed as like these, promotional misses. And it's just crazy. I always think about there's a clip from an AJ Styles interview where he talks about speaking to Joe around this time and saying to him like, "Don't worry, all these old guys might be here now, but this is going to be our place soon." And he's like, "That day just never came. There was more old guys, It's it's just strange. It's a moment in time, I guess. Joe hasn't won the belt yet, but he kind of feels like his run has already I think he's kind of peaked already with the undefeated run, and the X Division stuff. It's just, it's a strange thing. The match is like, again, as you put it, even in like kind of cool down mode, they can't help but do good stuff and have cool ideas and sweet sequences. Like it's always fun to watch them wrestle. It's just, I don't know. I guess it's kind of bloated in history now because of the context that we know everything that happened after this is interesting for sure.
Yeah. I think Joe's definitely there's a bit of mystique that I think was lost when his undefeated streak was lost. I mean, he's still, a hot act at this point. He's still a monster. AJ could still, both guys could still go at this point. I mean,
for sure,
are around their peaks physically. But yeah, unfortunately, just kind of a forgettable match here. But so Joe, at one point towards the end, like it's a greatest hits match. You got the Pele's, the Sentons, Joe power slam, AJ drop kick, all the stuff you would expect from these guys. But towards the end, Joe gets tossed to the outside through the ropes. It appears to have injured his knee and eventually stumbles his way back into the ring. AJ's like, "Oh, this guy's injured. I got him." So he goes to the top rope, goes for the spiral tap. Joe, by God, Joe was playing possum, rolls out of the way, heel clicks his way up to his feet and locks in the coquina clutch and then hits like a coquina clutch suplex, I guess.
Yeah.
For the win. So interesting fit. Joe's kind of like a Gunther, where he can just kind of, he doesn't really have a finish. He has finishes, but he can kind of win with anything. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the best context this works in is like the AJ point of view, right? Because like if you think about the way you laid this out, it's like AJ has him hurt, so he heads up to the spiral tap. He's like an elite dumb heel thing. Like, why did he do that?
Let me go for the biggest risk, least reward.
And then it suggests or implies that Joe like assumed he would do something that dumb, which is also awesome. So the finish is silly, but they pull it off. And the announcers again, they're like so happy with Joe here. Like, he got him.
Right.
It's fun though. I mean, they pull it off. The people like it. It's a cool deal.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, these two can just stumble into a great match whenever they want to. So it's like, let's have a little bit of fun here. Let's do something different. So I was all about it. Yep. And yeah. To your point, I mean, I think the closest these two got to like a peak main event program, I think they redid the triple threat match years later with Daniels. I think Joe was that Nation of Violence Mojo.
It is like kind of, but it's like a middle ground because I don't think he's doing the paint anymore, but they still are absolutely using that name because very soon after he debuts that, they kind of realize it sucks, but they like keep parts of it. He has those horrible tights and
the pants.
Oh yeah, the pants, dude. I mean, like you see what the Joe deal behind me. I have a great deal of resentment for many of the years that Joe spent in TNA. Like, I actually think it's kind of crazy. He's so good there the first couple of years. People forget how much they waste in the second half of his run, you know? Like, he's there until 2015, man. Start of 2015 is when he leaves. Like, yeah, it's an interesting run.
Yeah, he always felt like on the cusp of being the guy there, but wasn't quite. And sometimes would even like devolve down and just kind of like an opening, beat him up, beat a jobber match, whatever. But
yeah.
But that brings us to the main event here. We got the TNA or the NWA. I believe this might be the last NWA World Title match in TNA. Christian, the champion, defending against Sting and Kurt Angle. So we've kind of brought it up, in the interludes of this build. Sting and Kurt Angle, they're the baby faces here, I think. And Christian's obviously the slimy heel. Christian's very confident. I think they were having like a champagne party earlier because Christian's like, I've already won. Sting and Kurt, they're going to take each other out, and I'm just going to pick the bones. So that's kind of the story he's going for here, I guess. And lots of urgency in this match. I don't know if this was due to time constraints, but I felt the urgency watching this match. It was very, Christian's trying to stay out of the way in the beginning, but Sting and Kurt are able to team for a bit and repeatedly toss him out of the ring. Just another really chaotic match. I think it was fine. I guess the finish wasn't too pleased with the finish, but it's very classic TNA. So part of me loves it, but I don't know. What'd you think of this little ditty?
Yeah, it definitely feels like they were rushed. They got like 10, and the one thing I will say is, obviously, this is a match that in history kind of looks crazy, right? There's a lot of star power here. Like, it's a crazy collection of guys. And to their credit, it does not come at the expense of effort. They work really hard here, and they bring it and they pack a lot of stuff into their time. But nothing has a chance to breathe. And then, unfortunately, as you got to, the finish is... I mean, the problem is, it's one thing if you're not going to time it perfectly, but poor Sting is like... His timing is so bad that it makes the referee's decision look ridiculous, right? Because initially they give the thing to Kurt, and it's like, good Lord, man. I don't know. They get so cute with these finishes. This is a trend. I'm sure you've seen it almost every month at this point. It's like they do this a lot. And I just think it undercuts. By the end of it, you can't even remember the match. You're just remembering the finish, which they did a lot. So it's fun. Not much more than that, unfortunately.
Right. It's kind of a hallmark of TNA. Because the roster is just ridiculously stacked at this point. I mean, look, just Kurt Angle, Sting, Christian. Huge star power. But the hallmark of TNA is having all this star power and just dressing it up as silly as they can do it. Just putting them in just ridiculous situations, ridiculous finishes. And so the finish here. So Kurt has an ankle lock on Sting. At the same time, Sting has Christian rolled up in a schoolboy, which just reading that out, it's like, how did they even get into that situation? I don't know. It's very Human Centipede-esque. I should also say the original ref was knocked out at some point, because why wouldn't he be? It's a main event match. Come on. But the original ref comes to. As this whole situation is in the ring, ankle lock on Sting. Sting has Christian in a roll up. A second ref gets in the ring and counts the 3 count on Christian at quote unquote the same time Sting taps out to Kurt Angle's ankle lock. But the 3 count definitely happened before the tap, like a whole second, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're trying to paint the picture of a photo finish like the same time, it was very evident. And like you said, they award the title to Kurt. Like I would only assume that they strip him on Impact, because we got to tune in Thursday. There's so much we got to tune in to on Thursday.
I think the outcome of this is just King of the Mountain is for the, because as you said, the NWA thing's about to change, right? So now the TNA World Heavyweight title, I think it's all just for Slammiversary and King of the Mountain, but it's just, there has to be a different way to get to the same place. Like, because it makes the referee looks dumb, because there's clearly a pin and he's only looking at this submission. Right. Sting looks incredibly dumb because he's like, he's right next to him, man. Like he's gonna win the belt, you know. it's just sometimes you have to just get out your own way, and they never could manage to do that. So yeah, it's slightly a flat note to end a good show. It's a shame.
Yeah, the crowd was even like, we watched this and listened to the crowd. They don't react really. They're like, "What the fuck was that?" But yeah, to your point, I guess it's just a device to get to the new TNA World Championship, which, like I said, there's just better ways to get there. You could just have somebody win and then just trade titles. Like, okay, now you're the TNA champion. You don't need to have this, who's the champion? I don't know. Let's hang it up from the rafters. Right. But it is Slammiversary. King of the Mountain, I guess, has to happen. So that's where we crown the first ever TNA champion. It's pretty much all I remember. I know Chris Harris is in there, I think. I imagine all these guys are in there. So it's they're building to something, but it was a wonky way to build to it, which is TNA in a nutshell. So
it sure is. Yeah, this is very TNA. You're absolutely right. This show is like, there's greatness here, there's potential here, there's hilarity here, and then there's a finish.
Right. Well, maybe that's the sacrifice. We had to sacrifice a good main event finish to get some good stuff earlier, I guess, maybe.
There you go.
Well, I guess any other thoughts on the show as a whole? Sacrifice 07?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it for better and worse along the way. We encountered both, certainly. I think my main takeaway is what's next for the Bashams. Well, not the Bashams, Basham and Damager, I should say. Yeah, and thank goodness justice was served. Kip James is no more. Thank goodness.
Thank God. I mean, that's really the headline here. I
agree.
Do we think their last names are still Basham? Like, is it Basham and Damager Basham? That's my lore. That's my headcanon.
I hope so. Maybe they'll tell us that on Thursday too. We'll have to tune in.
Yeah, we'll have to tune into that. And I encourage everybody to tune in to my boy Joe. Appreciate you once again jumping on here, talking some total nonstop action. Where can everybody find you and listen to you and kiss you on the cheek tenderly and all that stuff?
I'm on the Twitter gimmick, X Twitter, whatever we're calling it now, at Joe Holbert. Late Night Grin is my general home. I pop up on WrestlePurist sometimes too, but Late Night Grin, we do a bunch of stuff like this. Last week we did a TNA Sacrifice 2006 watch along, which was like when the Monty Brown Joe Abyss match was Rhino match was taking place. The crazy triple threat was like a party atmosphere as we were all just yelling the whole time. Yeah, so
that's one of my favorite matches of all time.
Oh, it's an absolute hoot. So yeah, this kind of, if you enjoyed this and you enjoyed my, I wouldn't say insight, but my kind of whatever I did this show, you would enjoy Late Night Grin. So go check that at Late Night Grin on Twitter, and we're on the YouTube too. So thanks for having me, bro. This was fun.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe next time we'll run through some Velocity. We'll check up on the Bashams to see what they're doing over there. And
now we're talking. Yeah.
Now we're talking. That's Absolutely. That'll be Patreon exclusive. You got to pay for that, brother.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you to Joey Samoe for joining me on this episode. Great time with Joe. Go follow him on social media at Joe Holbert. Check him out on Late Night Grin on YouTube, as well as Wrestle Purists. All of this will be in the description. Give my boy a follow, a tickle on the neck, and a kiss on the cheek. Do all of those to me as well at Apron Bump. On all the social medias, apronbump.com for all my full episodes. If you're listening, give it a 5-star rating or a review. If you're watching on YouTube, give Daddy a like, a comment, a subscribe, a tickle on the tits, and a spit in the mouth, and whatever helps the algorithm. So, with that, I think that's all Daddy has for you. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Love you all. Big smooches all around. I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.